they're really looking for quality and durability. And as I said before, like there's so many shoddy products out there that are so easy to buy and are pushed to at all times. So keepers are really looking to buy things once, things that are going to last. They don't want to have to like return something because it doesn't work. That's a waste of their time. So this idea of like permanence as a premium is going to be really key for the keepers.
This is Allyson Rees, Senior Consumer Lifestyle Strategist at WGSN. Welcome to Lives of Tomorrow, the WGSN podcast, where we discuss with global thought leaders how shifts in society, ethics, and the economy are shaping our lives of tomorrow. Now, every year at WGSN, we publish our Future Consumer Forecast, predicting how we'll work, live, and play in the future. And today, we're deep diving into one of the most important cohorts for 2028, the keepers. This is the second of a series of episodes into the 4 different consumer personas that we're forecasting for 2028, as well as the emotions that are driving those personas. So stay tuned to see if you can spot yourself in one of the emerging cohorts. They tend to go beyond your usual Gen Z or millennial categories. It's much more about psychographics than demographics. And to help us get a deeper understanding of the keeper persona, I'm joined by Allyson Rees. So for anyone who perhaps hasn't tuned into any of your previous appearances, why don't you start by telling everyone what you do at WGSN?
I'm a senior strategist. I focus on lifestyle. And I always say that I love my job because I get to kind of dive into everything. So sports and sexuality and slow living, it's like runs the gamut. So I'm never bored. But yeah, so I'm focusing on lifestyle and just the way that people are moving about the world and how that impacts their spending.
Amazing. Okay, so we're going to get into the keeper specifically today, but lots of listeners are no doubt intrigued about the process that we go through to get to these future consumer personas. So why don't you lift the curtain a little bit on how we do this?
Sure. The future consumer is the culmination of just a giant research project, global research project among all of our teams. So we have our forecast team is based all over the world, and we come to the table with just so much research. I'm on the North America team, and I think our presentation was like 125 slides last year. So just so much research, and that gets poured into our key consumer emotions, and those emotions get distilled down into our future consumer. We're also thinking about the key consumer values and behaviors and how those are going to shift over the next few years. One thing that I think is interesting to think about with the future consumer is we do take into account demographics as well, but they aren't necessarily like binary. So some of them will be, more of a Gen Z focus or a millennial focus, but they're not siloed like that. Keepers can be from any generation.
Can you talk a little bit about the STEPIC methodology? Because this is trademarked for us. No one else goes through this process. And I think it's really important to help kind of frame to your point, lots of research, but the fact that the rigor that goes into this to ensure that, doesn't matter what job role you're doing or what industry you're doing, you can trust that these personas are going to be important in the future.
The way that we do our macro forecasts is all based on our STEPIC methodology, and that is our proprietary methodology. So STEPIC stands for society, technology, environment, politics, industry, and creativity. So that is the lens with which we're doing our research and then also building out these reports. So it's very handy for our clients because they're able to kind of see that all of it goes back to that grounding STEPIC methodology where they can see, oh, okay, this is the consumer. This is the creative lens. This is what's happening in environment and sustainability. So they're able to take out those pieces and see how it all lives organically all together.
So let's get into the keeper or the keepers. Emerging kind of consumer persona here. Let's talk a little bit about their core values and maybe some of their behaviors.
Yeah, so the keepers are our consumer cohort that is focused on trust, privacy, resilience, stability. We found in our report that 87% of UK and US consumers will spend more money on a product or brand that they trust. 87%. So we really anticipate that the keepers are going to be a large swath of consumers. They're really going to run the gamut. They really value stability, but stability can mean different things to different consumers. For some consumers that might mean low prices every day. For some consumers, that might mean like the store layout looks the same every single time they go there. For some people, it might mean, that the ingredients that they use, like if you're going to order a matcha, you're going to know that your matcha is made the same way every time with ceremonial grade matcha and it's made exactly how you like it. That's going to mean different things to different consumers. But overall, these consumers are very, very discerning. They tend to do a lot of research. And in a lot of ways, they become almost like brand experts when they're making big purchases. So if they're going to buy like a car or maybe they're going to buy a new piece of furniture, they're going to do all of their research and make sure that whatever they're going to buy is durable, that it's ethical, and it aligns with their values.
Do you think that some of this need and demand for trust is coming from a world where it's often difficult to trust at the moment, whether that's governments, whether that's politicians, whether that's people who run businesses?
Yes. So everything you said is true. And 72% of adults globally say that misinformation is a threat to the safety of their country. So this is something that's very important to people across the globe. And the keepers really believe that brands should be doing their own part to fight misinformation and not necessarily, keep people accountable, but do their own within their realm and within their scope of work, do their own part to fight misinformation. So one of the things we really highlighted in the future consumer was this idea of safety as a service. So we already have this really skeptical cohort. So brands are really going to need to double down on offering things like fraud alerts, identity protection, things that are really going to protect consumers and their data because that's what they're really scared about. So brands really need to lean into reassurance, reliability. And I think what we're going to see a lot over the next few years as AI becomes more embedded into our lifestyles is products that really highlight AI or brands that say, we do use AI, here's how we do it. This is, if you're going to see AI, we're going to tell you right there, we're going to have a watermark that says this is AI. But we're also going to see brands that are going to say, we're not doing this at all. None of our consumer facing products will ever use AI. So offering this really straightforward transparency is going to be really important so that they can build that trust that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I think the AI angle on this is really interesting because it's already so prevalent, potentially faster than anyone imagined. And the consumer adoption has also been really, really high. I think lots of businesses thought this would be something that was used as a tool within the corporate world. And yet we're seeing, large swathes of consumers jumping from their kind of more traditional search habits now into using Gen AI and being quite comfortable with it. But then I think that then puts a premium on the kind of craftsmanship, if we're looking kind of through one lens here, of where people's hands have touched a product for us or people have been involved in the creative process as well. And there's something really charming, I think, about that.
I think about that a lot about, adapted screenplay versus original screenplay. Is there a future where, that there's like best AI screenplay because this is really happening so fast? And I think it's particularly here in LA where, it's a very creative city. There's definitely a suspicion and a weariness towards AI within any creative realm. And I could see that really spilling over to people as they make purchase decisions that, this AI might be sort of quote unquote stealing my job in some way. So I don't want to put my money towards AI in other aspects of my life.
But there is another side of this, and I'm kind of, segueing maybe away from the topic a little bit, but that AI also unleashes creativity in terms of allowing people to bring new products to market or new brands to market, which in the past they wouldn't have been able to do unless they had
Absolutely.
a huge amount of funding behind them. And I think I find that kind of interesting and something that we should probably be shouting about in a positive way. This isn't all bad. There's two sides to it.
Absolutely. AI is really democratizing creativity and access to creativity in a way that I think is really exciting. And that's, it's something that we continually talk about at WGSN. We talk about trend tensions and trend polarity and how two things can exist at once. And it really is true that AI can be this really exciting thing that opens up a lot of creativity and a lot of potential new projects and products, but at the same time can be maybe a little bit scary if used
Yeah.
the wrong way.
Yeah, completely. So we're obviously futurists. We're looking 2 years in advance when we're building out these personas. How new do you feel some of these concepts are that are driving the keepers? What's the new slant on it?
Yeah, trust has always been important. Like you don't want to buy snake oil.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that. But the consumer has never been so skeptical or more armed with information as it is now. And so we're sort of trained to be skeptical at an early age, and we teach media literacy and AI literacy. Those are things that are being taught now. But at the same time, over the last few years, fake things, not necessarily fake things, but like shoddy products have become more prevalent, and they're kind of easier to sell
Yeah.
than they ever have been.
Yeah.
Or I'll say they're much easier to sell than they have before. You can reach a wider audience. And so, it's not feasible for every single product to have 10,000 five-star reviews. Not every product can change your life, like they say on TikTok. And so, when we think about the overarching consumer trends, I think that is really one to highlight is just this overall feeling of skepticism that consumers have, while also being armed with information and being able to kind of find out anything that they want, by just taking their phone out of their pocket.
Okay, let's talk about, I guess, the difference between demographics and psychographics. So, what's the typical life stage of the keepers in particular?
Yes. So in the report, we say that the keepers tend to be like your Gen X and your millennial families. And this is because they tend to be caring for young children. Many of them might also be caring for older parents as well. As boomers live longer, they're needing more care. Maybe they're in the same home as the family. So these consumers, they really need products that are going to simplify their life, make things easier. Convenience is really key. We do think, though, as Gen Z is aging and maybe they become parents or they get a little older, that they'll sort of shift towards this keeper persona as well.
I mean, I think that when you can't really emphasize enough, Gen Z are not just teenagers. They're out in the workplace, they're becoming parents. Millennials are an older cohort now. And I think
Don't say it. Don't say it.
I'm really sorry. I mean, I'm Gen X, so I'm
Totally.
basically ancient at this point in time. What are the most powerful global trends that are validating and explaining why this keeper persona is emerging right now?
Trust in global institutions is falling. So 40% of people say that they have less trust in global institutions. 35% say that they've lost trust in news organizations. I mean, that speaks volumes, and it speaks to this consumer need for safety and privacy. They're really looking for quality and durability. And as I said before, like there's so many shoddy products out there that are so easy to buy and are pushed to you at all times. So keepers are really looking to buy things once, things that are going to last. They don't want to have to like return something because it doesn't work. That's a waste of their time. So this idea of like permanence as a premium is going to be really key for the keepers.
Oh, I like that. Permanence as a premium. That's really good. Okay, quick fire questions, a little pause in the seriousness of the topic. What's a book you'd recommend to everyone right now?
I really need escapism right now. And I am going back to books that I have read over and over and over again. That's kind of been my thing recently. So I am rereading my favorite book, which is East of Eden by John Steinbeck, which is all about California. It's about the American dream. It's about family. It's just a wonderful book. If you've never read it, I highly recommend it.
I
Y-
have
Every
not read it,
you should
and
read it.
yeah,
It's wonderful. I mean, everyone always knows The Grapes of Wrath
yeah.
for Steinbeck. That's the one, and it's a great book. And what's great about The Grapes of Wrath is it's like 250 pages. This is not that. This is gonna be your 600 pages.
Okay.
So you really wanna dive in, but East of Eden, it's wonderful.
I'm away next week on holiday. So I
Okay.
am going to download that because that's really the only time I ever have time to read fiction. What's your favorite AI tool?
Yeah, it's funny. I report on AI so much. I don't really use it a ton in my daily life. I'll use it every now and then for like, these are the recipes that I have, or these are the ingredients I have in my fridge. Tell me what to make. I think that's the extent of it. But yeah, I don't use it a ton. I think
Okay.
just because I report on it so much that I'm always like, there's always new things coming out. So I never actually commit to one.
Okay. 2 weeks ago, I think I said it was Gemini, and I've moved on to Notebook LM now. That's my new favorite. So
See, you're already on the new thing.
yeah. It doesn't stop. What's the song you currently have on repeat?
My music has been hijacked by my child, unfortunately. But it's, my son, he's almost 7 and he's trying to figure out what his taste in music is. And so my husband and I are trying to like lead him in a direction that is not obnoxious. So right now we're teaching him about the Beastie Boys. Are you familiar
Okay.
with the Beastie Boys?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
But
yeah.
we do just I
Absolutely.
want to qualify with that with we do the radio edits. So the clean
Okay.
versions. So he's not listening to all the terrible language. So yeah, so I listened to Intergalactic this morning on the way to school drop
Okay.
off. So but I love the Beastie Boys, so I'm happy to I would take the Beastie Boys over K-pop Demon Hunters like
Yeah.
any day of the week. Although no
No.
disrespect to K-pop Demon Hunters. I've just heard it too much.
What was the last thing you ticked off your bucket list?
Jury duty wasn't on my bucket list, but it was something I always wanted to do, and I spent the week at jury duty here in LA, and now it is not something I wanna do ever again,
Oh,
and it's
really?
funny, just my mom always said that as you get older, you don't have a bucket list anymore, you have
Mm.
a different list that starts with an F and rhymes with bucket list, and I get that as I'm growing older.
Oh dear. Okay, I'm adopting that as well. That's
Yeah,
brilliant.
totally.
Okay, right. Let's move into the future. We're talking about a cohort that are going to emerge in the future, but let's talk a little bit more about how companies, brands, individuals can prepare themselves for that. So, we're forecasting that by 2028, a new trust economy will reward transparency and credibility. So, everything you've just talked about. What is your advice to brands to do today to design a better future for their customers or their future customers?
I think the biggest thing is designing quality products for life change. So anticipating this life change. The keepers, they really value design that can adapt to life transitions. So you don't want to buy something that's going to last you a year. You want to buy something that's going to last you 10 years. Some of the examples are if we think about like an older cohort, the Kolding School of Design in Denmark, they made a walker that is so beautiful. It's the most beautiful walker you'll ever see. And it's made out of these really premium materials. And it's designed to sort of take the shame out of having a walker, but also be there forever, and then you can give it to the next person who needs a walker. So products like that are really thoughtful and intentional and built to last.
Okay. I think that this topic in the past has been much more a sort of preachy, you need to do this from a sustainability aspect. And I think the shift here is that this is actually about time saving for people, that they don't need to go and buy again or get rid of because this is something that has beauty inherent in it and it feels less preachy. I can't think of a better word in this instance, but that we're doing this for good reasons rather than, well, you're bad because you're spending money on things that might not be good for the planet. This is, you're going to spend money on something that is going to save you time in the future and you can feel happy about it for that reason, as well as perhaps that it's more sustainable.
Yeah, this is a conversation around sustainability in that this is a product that you are going to use over and over and over again. You will never need to throw it away. So, and it's gonna save you time and save you energy and save you money, which let's be honest is very, very important. Maybe the
Yeah.
most important thing for
Yeah.
consumers.
Agreed. What about some examples that you might be able to highlight of brands who are thinking about the trust angle? So really kind of embedding it into their, I guess, their brand DNA.
Yeah, we have really great examples in the report. One of the examples that we've been talking about quite a bit at WGSN is from Aerie. So that's the American Eagle lingerie and intimates brand. and they have promised to not use AI in any of their imagery. And this is across social media, this is on their website. And they've really taken a firm stance on this, which I think is wonderful because they are targeting, young women. This is mostly Gen Z women who's their audience, and they're saying we're going to use real people from now on, and we will always use real people. So that's one really good example. I tend to think about Lodge, which is a cast iron skillet company here in the US. It's like more than 100 years old, and they just make one cast iron skillet. That is what they make, but they have a lifetime guarantee. So if you ever need to replace it, you can replace it. And yeah, it's great. I actually just used it. I used it as an example for a different report. It was particularly when we think about the conversation around like toxins in our cookware and nonstick pans and are they good for you and that whole conversation. They're just able to just float above that whole conversation because they have this product. It's been around for 125 years and it's never changed, and it stands the test of time.
Yeah.
Another one that we mentioned in the report is the one ingredient cornflakes by Marks and Spencer. And I absolutely love it because it's right there in the title. And so that's how they built trust, is this absence of any bells and whistles. It's just one ingredient's cornflakes. It has corn in it. And that's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. Okay. For this consumer group, we've written about inspired resilience. So turning fear into fuel for action. So what does this mean? Because this feels like a sort of move on. This isn't just about trust. This isn't just about, products with longevity. What's this aspect of their needs and wants?
Yeah, so this is for both consumers and brands. This is about taking fears and anxiety and turning it into resilience and turning it into better products. So for consumers, when it comes to shopping, this is really where we're going to see consumers, voting with their money, putting their money into products and brands that they believe in, that align with their values. When we think about how this can relate to brands, this is about them really learning from their mistakes and making better products. So taking that feedback loop from consumers, listening to consumers, taking in what they've learned, and then applying that to better products that will last longer and just have more of a be more stable.
So I've spoken on this podcast about reviews and people's lack of trust in reviews across, travel, what we're buying on Amazon, those kind of things. We get that in a low trust economy, price, prestige reviews probably won't signal quality. The proof's going to lie in more of that evidence of consistent use. How do you see that aspect of this evolving? I mean, you've just given some case studies, and one of those case studies is very much about something that will last a lifetime. But what's it going to mean more broadly for brands?
Yeah, I automatically think of the sort of like social media trend of photographing your beauty empties and
Uh-huh.
kind of proving that you used something up to the very last drop. That social media trend of like, this is a great product. Look, I used every single, and I'm going to buy it again. And so I always go to that because when you have that and it's part of your routine, then you become a customer for life for products that are really effective and useful. For the keepers, they're going to prioritize designs that are durable and repairable. Maybe they have some imperfections to them, but they have that evidence of use and that evidence of quality built in. So, when you think of like a beauty empty, maybe it's all disgusting from sitting inside your makeup bag, but but you've used it over and over and over again. And I think that that case, that sort of proof of use is really important for brands to be paying attention to.
I think what's fascinating about the two personas that we've covered so far in this series is that perfection is far less important. And in a world where every image can look beautiful because there are so many ways of filtering and kind of hacking the way that we sort of deliver imagery and product actually, that's becoming less important. And you've talked about this and this, but it's also come up in the previous persona we chatted about.
Yeah, for consumers right now, particularly for the keepers, they just want something that works well and that's going to be dependable. That's it. Like, does your product work? It's a very simple question to answer. And if it does, then consumers will buy it and be loyal.
Yeah, which is kind of I mean, it sounds so basic and so obvious, and yet it's so difficult to find right now.
Fortunately, it is. Yeah, it is. And so the ones that actually do work, the brands that deliver on what they promise, they really stand out for that reason.
But that's quite interesting in a world where lots of that brand loyalty has decreased. And I think part of that is because of the prevalence of choice. So we have become less obsessed with not less obsessed. We have we are we will try other brands out. We will try other products out. And a lot of that is because a new promise comes in. And the fact that we are disappointed time and time again, now you're seeing this cohort emerging who are going to reward with loyalty if something delivers. And again, that sounds quite basic, but it's not necessarily something that's readily available.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that goes back to that inspired resilience. And I think that when we think about the way that people shop, like if you've been burned by trying out another brand, you're going to be less likely to do that. You're going to stick with that one that never fails you. So yeah, it's definitely the keepers are going to be a consumer that really shout from the rooftops when something is good and something is working, so brands will really wanna have them on their side.
Last question on the keepers, because it always comes up. Is this a group that is going to be prevalent across the globe, or is this something you're seeing only in particular countries or regions?
I think we will see this across the globe, but I do think when we talk about choice, the US, Europe, those tend to be the markets that have the most choice. We think that we'll see them the most there, but I do think that everyone who is in middle life, a carer, a parent, really just a consumer in general, will be able to relate to this and be able to identify with the keepers.
And so, final question, just in general, are you more anxious or hopeful for the future?
The past few weeks have been really intense here in the US, so I'll say I am hopeful for November of this year. And I'll
Okay.
leave it at that.
A big thank you to my guest today, Allyson Rees, Senior Consumer Lifestyle Strategist at WGSN. Do check out our other podcast, Create Tomorrow, with my colleague Cassandra Napoli. But that's it from me. I'll be back with a new episode of Lives of Tomorrow in 14 days. I'm Carla Buzasi, CEO of WGSN, and I'll see you next time.